Let's go now to the Jaguars, where they add a receiver. We thought that they might be in the receiver mix at 17. They trade down with the Vikings to 23, and they get the guy they may have gotten at 17 anyway, with Brian Thomas out of LSU. So, Dave, what do you think of the prospect and the fit in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence?
I think it's a great fit for Jacksonville's offense in general. We're talking about a size, speed type of wide receiver prospect. Brian Thomas is almost 6'3". He runs a sub 4.40. It looks like it on film. I would say that he's not a polished wide receiver prospect, which, I mean, there were 3 of those guys in this draft class, and they all went with top 10 picks. If Thomas were polished, he'd be right up there with them. He goes 13 or so picks later. And I'll tell you what, I think he's got potential to be a good receiver and have a good career and be that top target for Trevor Lawrence. I'm just worried about him developing to the point where he's able to do everything, be a do-it-all alpha type of wide receiver. You've heard me talk about those types of receivers. I think he's a long way from there. He's pretty thin. I don't think his route running is great. I don't think he's got a ton of moves in his game. He can improve all that. And if he can stay healthy and maybe add a little bit of mass, it's a little surprising that he went to LSU and he didn't add anything, then maybe he can develop and become one of those alpha type receivers. But what I think he does for Jacksonville's offense, Jamie, is he takes the top off. We've talked about receivers like that we've been together for decades. So it's been decades that we've been talking about receivers like that in the NFL. And he'll open things up for Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and even Gabe Davis in a serious way. Jacksonville needed that. I think that that's something that Calvin Ridley didn't quite give them last year. And now Thomas can give them that this year. But what Ridley gave them as far as red zone prowess, I don't know if Thomas is going to be able to do a lot of that for them. So I'm a little hesitant to say that he's in that same class as the top 3 receivers. And that's why I'm going to take him after the top 3 receivers. I think he's a bench receiver in fantasy. And I would look his way no sooner than round 8 at absolute max.
2 questions. Does this, and I agree with you, does this move Trevor Lawrence up at all for you, closer to the top 12, in the top 12? And how far will you be dropping Christian Kirk and or Evan Ingram with this move?
I don't think I'm going to drop Kirk and Ingram that much. It might be just a couple of spots for Kirk and maybe none at all for Ingram. Maybe 1 spot for Ingram. I'd have to go back and look. As for Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be, I don't think this is enough for me to say, all right, no question about it, Trevor Lawrence should be taken ahead of the rookie quarterbacks in this draft.
Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert?
Herbert over Lawrence.
It's. I agree with you, but it's closer now. I mean, you
right?
You have better
what do you
pass
think about the rookie quarterbacks?
I'm sorry.
The rookie quarterbacks or Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, I'm taking the rookie quarterbacks over Herbert, so I would take the rookie quarterbacks over Lawrence. Yes, I think Lawrence is barely in the top 15 with the additions to our draft pool now of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I think both have a higher ceiling for this year. That could be wrong because clearly prospect wise they were on par with each other. But Lawrence has struggled over even the last 2 years when we thought that there was going to be a significant upgrade. He had the stretch in the first year with Doug Peterson at the end of the year, did not carry over to year 2. Injuries, offensive line woes, the ups and downs of Calvin Ridley. But I don't think this pushes him back into the good graces of fantasy managers just yet, because as we knew coming into the draft that Brian Thomas was going to be a raw prospect, and I don't think anything changes for that. And I think Kirk, this will drop him down a couple of spots for almost everybody, and will end up making him, I think, a tremendous value pick. So a guy still with top 20 upside that you can get maybe closer to wide receiver 30 now, based on, I think, how the draft will unfold and where he will go.